Nothing's written in stone here. It's just a conversation. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Lori Power, and I'm a group benefit consultant. My key core component of my business is being consistent and responsive to clients. So I am so very pleased to have Wayne on today. He's a legend in the financial services industry, and he was kind enough to agree to come in and share some of his insights and have a conversation. Wayne, let's start with just a slight bit of background on you. What makes you who you are today, and what was that trial by fire that got you here?
I'm a farm kid, raised at Killam, Alberta. It took me 5 years to fail the 3-year high school program. Never got a diploma, let alone matriculation. Got kicked off every sports team I tried out for. I was the first one to get kicked off. And very low self-image. My only real skill was breaking horses. And anyway, I ended up, my mother passed away when I was 17. She was 54. All of a sudden she was gone, like a day and a half. But she revived enough from the initial impact to be able to give us all instructions. So she talked to my dad and I, and she says, okay, you two, don't forget to feed the dog. It's like she was going away on a 2-week holiday, right? And my plants, you better give my plants away to the assistant, to the girls. When it was my turn for an individual conversation, she says, Wayne, you know that what you're doing with your life right now is very wrong. You're running around with a bad bunch of people. And she said, you better get your life straightened out. And she said, I'm going to recommend that you go to the city, get some proper education, make something of yourself. Okay? Okay. And that was the last words I heard from her. That and I love you. And those words rang in my ears for years. So I left Killam. I went to the city, ended up getting a job driving a garbage truck. And the future didn't look all that bright. But I got recruited into the life insurance business. I'm not sure why, and I was a horrible failure, absolutely horrible. It ran against my grain, the way I was trained and the things I was supposed to do. And I couldn't do it. So I started creating my own stuff at my 5 years. I don't know why I stayed, but I stayed and I started creating my own stuff. And that's when I started to take off. It was like I had to do business in a very low tension, professional, authentic way. And that's what I learned how to do. And then all of a sudden I started to take off, but it wasn't over. I ran into huge roadblocks, default growth. We'll talk about that in a minute. And eventually I ended up on the speaking circuit, and I've spoken in 16 countries, well over 1,000 talks, workshops, all in the industry that I come from. And my first talk in the USA was Radio City Music Hall to an audience of 5,000 people. So I've had all these experiences. And so I sold my practice in 1996, still in the same location with the same name in the door, which means it was a good succession plan, another topic. And but I kept on with this business, the speaking and publishing business. I'd started in 82, 81, in there somewhere. And I kept on with this business. And so, one of the themes that I think of is, experience is what you get when you get what you don't want. And so the longer you live, the more experiences you have, default growth. But it's experience that leads to wisdom. So you can instantly make some decisions on some things because you got the wisdom and the experience. And wisdom, of course, is what we want to strive for, because it makes our lives so much easier when we gather up the wisdom, but that comes from experience once again, right? So I thought this morning, as I was thinking about this, that, we spend the first 25 years gaining wisdom. In the next 25, we should be giving wisdom. First we gain, then we give. And I'm 74 now, and I absolutely love what I'm doing and making a difference in a lot of people's lives. And that's the giving part. In your business, you always you gotta know who you serve and serve those people really well. But really, in the beginning, a lot of it is about us. It's about building our assets, and it's about getting developed financially and all that kind of stuff. But later on, it's about giving back. That's a big deal.
It's a big deal, and that didn't happen to you overnight, of course, to
Mm-mm.
gain that wisdom. You've had lots of opportunities where, anybody looking in would say, hey, that's Wayne Cotton, he's got it all, he's got it made. But that wasn't the case. Talk to me about the barn burning down.
I'm going to preface that with another statement here. We grow by design and we grow by default. Design growth is where we make our plans, we build a strategy, we get busy and think it through, and then we get busy and implement our strategy. Of course, that's the preferable way to grow. Default growth is when you're going down the road with design growth and all of a sudden, boom, you're over here in left field somewhere. And you're saying, what just happened? And you got to figure out, okay, how do I get back to normal? Well, there isn't a normal, there's a new normal. We just experienced that with COVID, right? And so what happens is you got to figure out, how do you align that default growth with your design growth? How do you align those two? And so that's why you're constantly making tweaks. It's like an airplane flying between cities, right? They're constantly adjusting. And so we're constantly making mid-course corrections. But I want to focus on default growth for a minute because, you've all had some default growth. And one of my examples is my mom dying when I was young. We've all had default growth. So I want to just address that for a minute because that's something you need to learn how to deal with it. And that's about mindset. It's about having a strong mindset, knowing that you're going to get to the other side. So one of my phrases is that problems create beneficial rearrangements.
That's a mouthful.
That's been true in my life so many times over. Problems create beneficial rearrangements. And so when you got a big problem, you got to figure out, how do I get to the other side of this? Don't focus on the problem. I mean, yeah, you got the problems, you got to figure that out, but you got to figure out how you get over it, around it, through it. How do I get to the other side? Because in the other side, you're invariably in a better position than you were in before you got the problem. It's like the Japanese proverb, fall down 7 times, get up 8, right? And so we need to be strong. We need to figure out, how do we improve our mindset? How do we improve our ability to move forward with these situations in life? I lost my 4-year-old daughter at one time. They say, well, how do you reconcile that? She got spinal meningitis. In a day and a half, she was gone. And that's an absolute horror story. And she had 7 heart arrests in the night. We never got to see her after she went into intensive care. And that's not, you say, well, how did that turn into a positive? Well, the interesting thing is she made a cool butterfly for me the day before she died. She was still perfectly healthy 4-year-old kid. Here's a photocopy of her butterfly. And I set it up, I gave her a 3x5 card and I said, here, let's cut out the wings. And I said, you can color it. She was into multicoloring, as you can tell. And so she colored the butterfly. Then I got another 3x5 card and I glued them together so it would stand up by itself. This is just a photocopy of it. So it would stand up by itself. She finished and said, Adina, but the butterfly doesn't have any mouth. So she got her brown crayon and she drew this mouth hanging out the corner of the butterflies. And we had a laugh about it, set it up on my desk, and I was in my den at home. We went and enjoyed that beautiful day. It was a Sunday afternoon in the fall. About 11 o'clock that night, she woke up. Daddy, I got a headache. I don't feel so good. Checked, running a pretty high temperature, called the doctor. He said, oh, lots of things going around. Try and keep her temperature down. I went to work the next day. And about 5 o'clock, my wife phoned me and said, or 4 o'clock, she phoned and said, something's wrong. And so we went to the doctor. He said, get to the hospital. It's spinal meningitis. I think you're plenty early. 12 hours later, she's gone. And that had such a huge impact on my life. So how do you turn that into something positive? Well, this butterfly story has been shared around the world. I don't know, probably 1,000 times. I've written it up in books. And I've told this story, not in the context of woe is me. We need to focus on the relationships with the people we love. That's a really big deal, especially for business people, because you get into the business and the business gets into you. And next thing you know, you're playing ping pong in your head all the time, even when you're with your family, even when you're on the golf course, if you ever do that, like you're always in the business in your head.
I echo that, Wayne. I know most people in the room can nod and agree to that.
Absolutely.
It's very difficult to separate personal from our business.
Sure it is. And you know, one of the things that I'm teaching, I'm only in the financial services business, is that when you're having thought attacks, you don't even realize it's a thought attack. It just thinks that you're always thinking. Ping pong, ping pong, ping pong. You go to church on Sunday and the minister's giving a great sermon. You're busy taking copious notes. He's all excited, but you're not doing anything with the service. You're taking notes about your damn business. Right? And so, man, this is something we got to learn, because it's all about money, time, and mental freedom. If you don't have the mental freedom, I had 2 strokes when I was 53. Another example of default growth. You know why I had them? Sleep deprivation. I got on 4 hours of sleep a night for 20 years. Thought I was smart. And my wife and I went and spent 4 days with a clinical psychologist in Laconia, Washington, south of Vancouver. And the summary of it all was, he said, Wayne, you're suffering from long-term sleep deprivation. But the question is, why? My busy mind. Brenda's a night owl. We go to bed at midnight. I wake up at 4 a.m. And he said, you said you go to bed at night with some issues on your mind, and you've got your mind working so that you wake up in the morning with the answers. And how much REST do you think I got those nights? I said, you've gone on maybe 2 hours of sleep a night for 20 years. I said, your body's just talking to you, Wayne.
I think that's one of the keys, Wayne, when people are working with you, both your clients and who you work with in the financial services, is that authentic personality that you have, that willingness to share those down moments where perhaps other people, and we were talking about this just prior to you coming in about, you know, it's time to talk day, right? It's time to shatter those mental walls and share authentically. Would you say that's one of your key components of success, is that authenticity?
Absolutely. And now, I had, you know, I built a tax retirement estate planning practice, and I built a marvelous practice. But here's the thing. I was taking 180 days a year off and running 2 businesses, because I went through a period, Laura, you know about this, of extreme workaholism. Unbelievable. Morning, noon, and night, up before my kids were awake, home after they were asleep, down in the office till 2 or 3 on Saturday afternoon, back in there again Sunday afternoon, cranking it up to do it all over again. 7 years like that, 7 days a week. Well, that's really dumb. I got what I deserved there. 8 stress-related medical problems in a period of 2 years. And all of a sudden, I had to my doctor said, Wayne, you're killing yourself. You're going to die if you stay in this business. So it's the only thing I know. And so sometimes we don't recognize what's happening to us. Your personal life is by far the most important life you have. You know, I've often said, like, you know, you get into the business gets into you, and then it grows and grows and grows to the point where it is the bigger circle. Your life is a smaller circle. You didn't intend it to be that way, but that's what happens to us. What we need to do is figure out how to make your life the big circle, and your business is just one component. It helps make your life work. But it is about your personal life. It's about your family, your faith, your friends, your fun. It's about your personal life. That is number one. Just try and take some of it away and see what happens.
So that would be what you would talk about. That was the default growth you had prior to.
Oh, I had several. Yeah, I've had several of them. Yeah.
And then you're intentional. Now, some might say that those were just, you know, pivots, right? That even they may transcribe that. But I like the way that you talk about that as being default growth rather than intentional growth. Or take us through the flip side of what you learned from that and how you applied it to the go forward.
If you have the belief that problems create beneficial rearrangements, a close friend of mine is Todd Durkin in San Diego, and he just wrote a book called Get Your Mind Right. And you know, and he's the only person outside of our business that I've mentored. He was a young guy. He was doing massage therapy. We had a place in San Diego, but Todd built a strength training center. So when you see Drew Brees or Aaron Rodgers, you're looking at Todd's work. He deals with a number of major athletes. A lot of it's about getting your mind right and understanding that problems create beneficial rearrangements. Here's another statement for you. Convert problems to procedures. You can't do it all. You'll never get anywhere. And so you gotta convert problems into procedures. You know, what I teach is 5 principles of growth. First one is purpose. It's knowing what you want. Knowing what you want is really big. That's your why. And knowing who you serve is number 2. Knowing who you serve, having a very clear picture, your best case scenario. Who do you serve? What does your ideal client look like? But best case scenario is even deeper, because when you determine your best case scenario, you're going to look at your top 10 client or customer relationships that you really enjoy working with those people, and they bring the most to the table for you as well. How do you determine that? You reverse engineer your success. You look at your top 10 revenue generating client situations, and you make a list of all the characteristics of the person or of the situation of the firm, and then the characteristics of what happened working with those people. So 2 lists. And then what you do is you try and find the similar 6 or 7. So top 10, similar 7. You look for those similarities, and then you drill down, because you're reverse engineering your success. You're looking in the rearview mirror to figure out where you've been so you can keep on moving in the right direction. So your job is to replicate the best and delegate the rest. That became my theme in my practice. Replicate the best. So every year I redid my best case scenario to see what the tweaks and tunes were so that I could then find more people that look like that. So your job is to find, sift, sort, and select the right people you want to invite into your clientele or into your business store. Because if you're just getting a flow of referrals, for example, I say, so what? Because so many of those people could be off your best case scenario that they're preventing you from getting where you have the ability to go.
When you're speaking to the choir here, I had 6 years of leads where I would say each week I had at least 25 leads. And these would be 25 leads that were willing to talk to me. So I'm not just talking about names on the paper. And you call them and you start to have that intentional conversation with them. They're not even close to being the client you want to serve. Not even, you know that, Marlene, hey? So yeah, I
so here's the thing.
Understand.
Just remember, you're losing money when you're just dealing with referrals, because so many of them are off the profile of who you should be serving. You know, it's like there's a competency ladder, a 22 high rung step ladder. And when you start, you know, you're dealing at a pretty low rung for you and for the people you serve. But over time, the job is to keep climbing that competency ladder. Out of the 22 rungs, I don't think I ever got past rung maybe 12 or 13. When you figure out who you serve at the highest level, not being an opportunist and running out there and doing stupid stuff, at the highest level of your current capability, that's where you belong. You're the rainmaker. You're the person who's going to make this happen. So when you replicate the best, you're expanding your business much faster than you can any other way. So that means you got to figure out how to find, sift, sort, and select the right people you want to invite into your clientele. You don't just jump at it, because you can spend an hour in a conversation and you shouldn't have been there in the first place. So you select people out. Now, if you're doing all your business through social media, you got this great wide funnel and you got all this stuff coming at you, and you're trying to figure out, well, okay, well, where do I find the good ones? But if you're getting introductions from your current best case scenario clients, customers, to other people that fit that same best case scenario, oh my gosh, you can shorten it. You got a skinny little funnel, but it's like you've gone underground. You're not out there with your head stuck above the foxhole. You're going underground to find the right people. And that's part of what I teach in the financial services business. So like my customers, they know how to approach people with an envelope that looks like an invitation, handwritten envelope, commemorative stamp. And then they have a brochure that has a handwritten note of introduction from our current client to the new prospective clients on the front. And the inside isn't about all you do and how wonderful you are. It's not about that at all. It's about the introduction of you. So what happens then is you're crossing a trust bridge from one relationship to the next. It's incredibly powerful. Like, it's huge, because you don't have to go out and build all that trust and differentiate yourself and you know, advertise and promote everything else. You've gone underground. And by going underground, oh my gosh, you can, depending on the type of business you have, but you can build your whole business being underground. Nobody even knows you're there, except that the people you really want to work with. Is this making any sense?
It's making huge sense, because Wayne, look what I have on my desk.
Perfect.
I'm a big believer in using posts now, because especially the last 5 years, it stands out. It's now different.
Absolutely. Totally.
It exhibits that time, energy, and effort that we've put in to trying to connect with that person.
Replicate the best, delegate the rest. So in the latter part of my career as a financial advisor, I had a single interview with each new client couple that came in our door, but they were already pre-filtered by the people on my team who were the counselors. Here's what I discovered. Out of 2,500 leads a year that we were generating, only 3.6% fit my best case scenario. And those people generated 73% of our revenue. And when I did the analytics and realized that, I just stopped cold turkey. All forms of attraction marketing I was doing, I quit. And the next year, we went from just over $1 million of revenue to $1.5 million. My overhead went down by $100,000. It was a 1.1 left for me, the good stuff, the residue, not the revenue. And we'll talk about an important line. The year before, it was 50% of it was for me, 500. I go from 500 to 1.1 in 1 year of the good stuff. So remember about the big circle and the small circle, especially. Remember that when you're going through default growth, we got a card from somebody we know, and we were going through some default growth in our business. It'll happen. I mean, you'll go through periods of time. It doesn't always just go perfectly up the way it's supposed to, right? The way you want it to. Get a card from his friend, and she says, in front of the card says, "Barn's burnt down. Now I can see the moon." And I laughed. I mean, it just caught me by surprise. Barn's burnt down. Now I can see the moon. That's the attitude. You know, what happened when Adina died? I got to share her butterfly story with who knows, maybe 100,000 people. You know, and Brian Tracy was speaking here at an event, and I've known Brian since he lived in Edmonton many years ago. And so at the break, I went up. Oh, for crying out loud, the butterfly guy. How you doing, Wayne? And so butterflies are a really huge deal. Here's one of the latest ones. It's a jewelry box. I got it from a guy I haven't talked to in 15 years. So my brother makes these, and I've been trying to get one for you. Remember that your personal life is absolutely number one. And after going through that period of workaholism, all these stress-related problems, lost everything except my integrity. Didn't go bankrupt, but was beat up awful badly. After everything was gone, I still owed $500,000. This is 1980, at the end of 1980.
And you know how low interest rates were in the early 80s.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. And you know, the thing was, I was going to go bankrupt. We left our house for the last time. The only thing left was a 3x5 card. I was going to leave it there. It followed us to 3 homes over a 10-year period of time. And then I took it, put it in my jacket pocket, went to Smitty's restaurant in Calgary Trail, you know, the one. And I was by myself. My job that day was to go find a bankruptcy trustee, because everybody said, Wayne, there's no way out of this. And the sheriff and I got to know each other on a first name basis. I had 7 legal judgments against me. And it was winter time. I put my car keys in my jacket pocket. Out comes this 3x5 card, and it says, if you've got a problem. And I went, people in the restaurant turning around, looking at me. I was by myself. And then I read the rest. Make it a procedure, and it won't be a problem anymore. I read it probably 50 times over breakfast that day. And I thought, I've never procedurized what I'm doing. I'm just here, there, and everywhere. I'm trying to be an elephant hunter chasing big cases. I'm trying to be a rabbit hunter trying to make a meal. And that's the kind of thinking that led me to figure out my best case scenario. That's something I did, because now my client.
The takeaway, Wayne, is as we're going, we spoke this morning even to say, you know, the pandemic's not going away. So we have to lose that, you say, get mentally in the game. Here we are, you know, the outside or the environment, it is what it is. What is our intentional focus, and how do we do that? So much wisdom to share.
So one of the things that helped me make the big change from workaholic to the other side of the coin, I had to talk to my creditors. I had to pay off all this money if I was going to make something happen. And I asked these people that had legal judgments against me, look, anyone you can put me down like that, but would you give me 3 months? Because I know what I've done wrong. I know what I have to do right. And that's when I figured out the best case scenario exercise to figure out what was my best situation. That's when I took 16 filing cabinet doors full of stuff. I mean, today I'd be on a nice memory stick, but it was my information retrieval system, sales ideas and success ideas and all that stuff. I took it to the city dump and I let it all scatter in the wind. And then I also, after dumping the junk, then I did my best case scenario. And so problem, process, dump the junk, best case scenario, 3 really critical lessons. Now, the 4th thing that happened was a few days later, I'm out in my den in a rented garage behind a rented house. And I was thinking, I need some really big motivation for the future. And I decided to color code a calendar. And I color coded this calendar in 4 colors. Mellow yellow, and mellow yellow is my time, MY, my time. I decided that in 10 years, I'd want to take 180 days a year off. Red tape is cleanup, administrative, education, and stuff. So red tape. And then I had blue sky, some time to strategize at the beginning of each quarter. Some blue sky days where you're not in your business, you're on your business. Last but not least, green machine. Notice I say last but not least is green machine. See, here's the thing. Work expands or contracts to fill the amount of time you give it. Doesn't feel like that. Brian Tracy calls that the law of forced efficiency. So I color coded this calendar in which I'd take 180 days off. And you know what? I got so excited about it, I decided to do it that year. The beginning of 1981, I took 180 days off that year. My health improved, my relationships improved, my life improved, and I doubled my highest year of income ever. And I had no staff versus 11 down in First and Jasper, fancy office space, and I got no staff for halfway through the year. Then I got 1 part-time person, and I doubled my highest year of income ever. And I learned something really important. Stop being an opportunist and start being a strategist. And when you color code that kind of, you can find this stuff at nobrowndays.com. You go to nobrowndays.com. When I was speaking at one of my main platform meetings at the $1 Million Roundtable, I said, if you mix all your colors together, the color you get is brown. So we named the website nobrowndays.com. It's free stuff there. I teach a couple of classes so you can learn how to do this.
I can't thank you enough, Wayne, for coming in. You've given us a lot of information to get started and practical stuff, right? When you say it just makes so much sense. It's like, why haven't I already been doing all of these things?
Well, you just haven't had enough experience to get all the wisdom. That's all.
There. Now that's a kindness to my milestone, right?
I love it.
Well, I thank you so much for coming in. I appreciate everybody coming out. I hope you'll join us next week. We're going to go through the startup experience. So we're talking to an intentional entrepreneur. I don't think anybody's going to want to miss sharing time with Anthea Sargent as we go through that process. Wayne and everybody, thanks so much. I look forward to seeing you again.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.